Welcome, fantasy managers. This is Devo 1099 from Fantasy Football Backers, coming with Game Week 29 for the Premier League. We've had some exciting matches of late. Unfortunately, they haven't gone in the direction of the Premier League teams in the Championship League. But coming back home, domestic play will be a little bit more comfortable for Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal. Everton's still alive in Europa, which is a bit of a surprise, as they've struggled in the Premier League all season. But we have a really interesting match week this week. Manchester City is one of the bigger favorites, but they're away from home against Burnley. Chelsea has Southampton, which is not easy. Arsenal has West Ham, who probably is pretty attractive. West Ham's fallen off quite a bit. But let's get right to it. We're going to start a keeper, and we're looking at Mondogoal again. If you haven't played on Mondogoal, they have an outstanding end-of-season competition that you have to qualify for, that they are going to be giving away £30,000 at the end of the season. I believe first place takes £10,000, which is a really nice little payday, considering we're just getting started here in daily fantasy in the UK. But we've got a really cool slate. We're going to start with keeper here. The most secure keeper is going to be Thibaut Courtois from Chelsea. This is contingent on him starting, which I tend to think he will. I think Mourinho will go for this match to get the taste out of his mouth from what happened in Paris, or excuse me, what happened in Chelsea against Paris Saint-Germain. Courtois is a bit on the expensive side when you consider some of the players that are available beneath him. So realistically, I don't think Courtois is going to be a good play, but if you want to spend up and you've got the budget to do it, I do think he's relatively safe. I'd be a little concerned that that check came in. That's probably enough for me to avoid him, but I wouldn't blame me if you wanted to try to pay for him, because I do think that Chelsea will be looking to make a statement in this match. Then there's three keepers that I'm looking at, and they're much more realistically priced. You've got Julian Speroni from Crystal Palace. They open the week off against QPR at Selhurst Park, where they've played very well, particularly in defense, and they've played well under Pardew. So Speroni looks like a really nice option. He's only 6'1", which is a pretty reasonable for a keeper that has nearly even odds to keep a clean sheet. QPR has been really dreadful away from home. Charlie Austin is not in quite the form that he was before, and he has nobody to service him. I don't see how QPR is going to score more than one if they get one. So I think Speroni is a really interesting play. Then you've got Timmy Howard from Everton. He was so bad at the beginning of the year that he's still at £5.2 million. So, you know, at his odds to keep a clean sheet, which are reasonable, he's got Newcastle coming to town without Cisse. I think that Howard is equally as good a play as Speroni. Little concern that there's, you know, the typical lag that Everton has shown in the Premier League after matches where they've played in Europe. They were at home, though, and they're at home again here. So that should help a little bit. Given the choice between Speroni and Howard, it's really going to depend on how the rest of my team shakes out. If I need that £900,000, yeah, I'm going to take Tim Howard, and I'm going to be fine with that. And if you need another £900,000, this is a very interesting play that I don't think people will have the gall to actually go forward with. But Kasper Schmeichel from Leicester City should be returning. He's got a broken metatarsal bone down his foot, which has been recovering, and so he's possibly going to be playing and more likely starting if he's available against Hull. he is a mere 4.3 million pounds, which he could pretty much, if he gets 2 saves, lets up a goal, and plays the full game, he's going to be at value right there. So it may not even be that risky to give him a shot. If he gets a clean sheet, now you're really talking. He could double his value and then some. So Schmeichel's an interesting play. You'll never see a keeper that cheap that actually has a chance to not get shredded. So keep Schmeichel in mind, but only if you're absolutely certain that he's going to play. It's just not worth the risk otherwise. Moving on to defender, I'm going to talk about several different players here and some different situations that we have on hand. Starting with Patrick Van Aanholt from Sunderland. He hasn't fully won over Poyet. He doesn't start every match. We think he's going to start this match, and we think that he's going to be able to get forward against Villa quite a bit. He draws some fouls. He picks up some points that way. Sunderland has a chance to keep a clean sheet. It's a really nice situation for Van Aanholt to walk into. The next team I want to talk about is Everton, because as we discussed, we like Howard's chances, and we like Everton against Newcastle this week. The problem lies in their injuries and the uncertainty surrounding them. So Leighton Baines is facing a late fitness test. John Stones is facing a late fitness test. That really clouds things a bit, because we would love to take Luke Garbett. He comes in at a nice value, but if he's not going to be starting, then clearly we can't be spending 6.7 million pounds on him. I think Baines is enough up in the air that I can't risk Garbett in that spot. So what I will do, though, is take Phil Jagielka, who works out very well on Mondogoal. He gets a number of completed passes, doesn't really do much in attack, but he does enough defensively to make up for that. And as we said, they've got a shot at a clean sheet, maybe a point for allowing 1 goal. I like Jagielka. So Van Aanholt, Jagielka. Another player I'm looking at is Joel Ward from Palace. So we've got a Palace keeper, we've got a Palace defender. Ward is at a reasonable value, 6.2 million. As we mentioned, we like Palace to keep a clean sheet potentially. Ward is the most likely to be involved in the attack. I don't know if they'll really use him a whole lot in terms of crossing the ball in. But it's not impossible that he can get a couple assists, or at least draw a couple fouls, which can give him a little bit more upside to his value. The last player I want to discuss, and we have brought him up a number of times, and I don't think he's quite come through for us like we've hoped, but that doesn't mean he can't, and that's Jeffrey Schlupp from Leicester City. Mondogoal still has him listed as a defender, but Schlupp very much plays forward. He's more of a winger. So he'll be eligible for the clean sheet bonuses when he's not going to be in the final third of Leicester's defense really at any point. So that's a really nice option. I don't think a ton of managers will be on him. So if he's able to finally get an assist or a goal or anything and they keep a clean sheet, he can make us a lot of money this week. So keep an eye on Jeffrey Schlupp. If you want to get a little bit risky, I really think he could come through for us finally. Moving on to midfield, we've saved you a bit of budget because we do think that the opportunity to spend your money, as usual, is going to be in the midfield and in the attack. The best play out of the midfield this week is David Silva from Manchester City. He's been playing outstanding football. He is the engine that makes that team go. Even after Yaya Toure came back, Silva's really been involved. He's been creating a lot of chances. Aguero is bound to finish a few more after having an off week. And Silva's been scoring as well. So there's really not any downside to Silva's game right now. He can score Mondogoal points in a number of ways, and we really love him this week. If you're going to spend up in the midfield, he's your guy. Another opportunity to spend some money is Mesut Ozil from Arsenal. We were shocked to see in the past 4 game weeks he has created the most chances out of the midfield, which Arsenal has been up and down. West Ham is been mostly down. So Arsenal's likely to get a couple goals on the board if things, if West Ham lets things fall apart. This could be, a 4-goal game for Arsenal, and when that happens, Ozil's going to be involved. You could also look at Cazorla, though he's gotten, a bit expensive and hasn't been playing quite as well since Ozil's been back. But Cazorla does, take penalty duty and free kicks, so that's always, upside that we love. Couple other midfielders. We're looking at Jason Punchin for Palace. He's just been on fire. He's played so well with Pardew. Warnock and him just did not get along. That was well known. They suffered because of it. So now Pardew's got him in there, and he's making this team go. Had 3 assists a couple games ago, so he's playing exceptionally well. Also, Riyad Mahrez from Leicester is a really interesting play. He's plays well. If you look at his game log, he plays well against teams he's supposed to play well against for the most part. So if you look at a game with Hull where they should have their fair share of the ball, Mahrez is their best option to score. He's now got Kramaric up front, who Kramaric finally opened his account against Arsenal a few games back, and he was really effective in Europa. So he's bound to have one of those games where he gets a goal or two, and Hull is certainly prone to giving up goals. Our differential for the midfield is Ander Herrera from Manchester United. Herrera tends to come through for us. For whatever reason, Louis van Gaal doesn't really love him. He doesn't make his way into the starting lineup very frequently. But when he does, he's effective. And he's not inexpensive on Mondogoal, which I think will have most managers steering away from him. But with Di Maria out and with Ashley Young looking like a doubt, I think Herrera could come in and play really well. I'm pretty confident that he will start. Tough to plug him in when the game is Sunday and you're not going to be able to see that lineup. So that makes it a risk, but it could be a risk worth taking. At the very least, he's going to get 30 to 40 minutes coming on later with their lack of depth in the midfield with Di Maria. And especially if Young misses out. So if you hear that Young misses out before Saturday, I think it's worth taking a shot. If you don't get that information, I think it's a bit of a punt. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but when Herrera plays, he tends to come through, and Spurs give up goals. So interesting spot, differential for sure, but one to consider. Moving on to forward, we are going to start with the most obvious play, which is Sergio Aguero. He didn't come through for us last match. That was last match. I don't see that being an issue here. He's going to turf more. Burnley plays better at turf more, but that's all relative. We're talking class of the league here with Manchester City coming to town. They're still fighting to try to win the league. And Aguero is going to have his chances. There's nobody in Burnley's back four that has a prayer to stop Aguero if he's on. So hopefully he shows up with good form, gets us a goal or two. At £15 million, it's not as expensive as he could be. So I think this is a good opportunity to grab him. For Arsenal, you've got Alexis Sanchez, but we're going to look at Olivier Giroud. He's coming in at £11.8 million. He came off the bench last match at Old Trafford in the FA Cup, but he scored the match before that, and that was after his just disastrous performance against Monaco in Champions League. So Giroud still has a little bit to prove. He should have plenty of opportunities. West Ham's back four is a mess. They've been playing really poorly. I don't think that they have a center back that can really shut down Giroud, though they're not terrible. It's Cresswell and Jenkinson's failures at defense that are hurting West Ham a lot more than Tompkins. So we like Giroud. We also are looking at Dwight Gale. Crystal Palace, he's pretty much the only striker left right now. There are several that are a little bit injured. Gale's been very good. He's not the most gifted talent in the Premier League, but he finds the ball, and he finds the ball in good spots, and he's able to get shots off. He's willing to pass. He's really just a very active player he's a nuisance for the opponent, and I think he's going to really want to show something. And QPR is such a disaster away from home that you're going to want a few pieces of Crystal Palace, whether you take Punchin or not, whether you take Speroni and Ward. It's shocking, but yes, I do think it's perfectly reasonable to have 4 Crystal Palace players on your team this weekend. Last, we're going to look at our differential. Christian Benteke appears to be likely to miss out on his match. What is that? Saturday against Sunderland. So we're looking at Gabriel Agbanlahor. He is a mere 4.8 million. We have recommended him before, and he was a disaster for us. But he did score recently, able to bag a goal a couple games ago. Typically plays a little bit better with Benteke, but I think Sunderland is weak enough that we could count on Agbanlahor to maybe try to get us 5-6 points, easily pay off his 4.8 million, and allow us to slot in some of these midfielders and forwards that we've mentioned. So I think we've got a really fun match week ahead. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat, ask them on Twitter. Check out the site, fantasyfootballbackers.co.uk. We'll have more articles and information. We've got Ben Dinnery on the injury front. Things are really coming together for us, so we hope that you enjoyed the show. Looking forward to making some money this weekend on Mondogoal, among the other sites. And keep in touch. We'll be back soon, and best of luck.